Great. Thanks, everyone, and welcome to our final wrap-up session. I'm really excited to be here with Fabio, Anna, and Tom, some of my favorite speakers from this weekend, and I'm also going to have a conversation with you. So we're really excited to synthesize some of the big ideas that we're taking away from this meeting of the minds. And if you haven't moved down, I would be so grateful if you would. And we'd like to start by just asking people, in fact, should we even scoot a little bit closer? Do you want to?
And I know that you just said this, that we want people to move down, but a lot of what we're going to be doing this session is sparking conversation among you all with each other. So if you are not near somebody, then move you need to yourself near somebody. If you're in these solo seats here, maybe squeeze in so you're near other people. You don't have to be in the seat next to somebody, but be close enough that you can have a conversation with them, because we want to have you guys talking to each other.
So while you're doing that, we'd like to start by just doing kind of popcorn-style exercise, inviting people to just call out a word that comes to mind that is kind of sticking with them from the conversations that we've heard here. So would anyone on the panel like to start?
Free association, people. Just
Food policy. Awesome. Yeah.
Food
sandwich.
waste.
Cooking. Yeah, I think the most retweeted tweet from the weekend was about the Mark Bittman saying the most revolutionary thing you can do is cook more. Culture.
Culture,
Multiple meanings of the word culture. Yeah, responsibility.
Action. That's one word that comes to mind.
Change.
Feedback, which is we heard this morning very early.
Oh yeah, there was some really experimental
but the
feedback.
broader idea of feedback, that was just a metaphor for, was it totally planned by then?
That's right. Icebreaker.
Yep.
Soil. I loved when Jeffrey from River Park talked about soil and why he's less enthusiastic about aquaponics. Microbes.
Say what?
Honeybees.
Honeybees. Branding. Framing.
Framing.
Very much so. Great.
Fracking. Yeah, that's a good one.
Ooh.
We haven't heard of that one.
That was nuance.
Yeah, you can add it. Yeah, scale. There was a really great quote about scale.
Connection.
Yeah.
Feeder of fish. That was 2 words.
Yeah. Okay, you're disqualified.
And I wasn't, what?
I meant
Oysters.
Actually, I meant
Yeah.
filter fish. It's
yeah.
too late in the afternoon.
Great.
Storytelling.
Amen. Great. Well, speaking of storytelling, we'd like to invite you guys to tell some stories with the people around you and talk about one takeaway that you have. We're going to give you 2 minutes to talk to one another. Actually, you know what? First, I'd like to invite Mary Nessel to come down and say a few words. I have a surprise guest. Woman who needs no introduction.
I'm so embarrassed. First of all, thank you for letting me have 5 minutes, and I'm sorry I haven't been able to come to all of this, but I'm really glad I got to come this afternoon. What I heard is just what I'm thinking about these days. I'm teaching a class in food advocacy at NYU this semester, and kind of stuck on trying to help people think through how to move from food as delicious and personal and something that they love to something that's going to change the system. And to me, what's really important is to try to figure out how to change the system. And there are many, many ways to do it, starting from what's beautiful and delicious and makes you feel better and healthier. That's an opening point. And what I like so much about thinking about food issues is that you can talk about the most important issues in the world and do about it through food in a way that you can't do about it in any other way. And the question is how to do that and how to move people's thinking from their own personal, deeply felt feelings about food and what's healthy and what's good to eat and what everybody else should be eating, to changing the food system to make it easier for everybody to eat in a healthy and environmentally sustainable and friendly way. And that, to me, is the thing. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm writing a book about food advocacy, really struggling with that particular issue. If you have any ideas, I want to hear them. I want to steal them, actually. And trying to get people to think that even if you make a change in a school, that's a school lunch change is a political action. You can be political without doing something that's really scary. And while we're working at this level to change the system, we can just hope that at some point we'll have a government that's more responsive to these things.
You're not getting off that easy. Thank you. I think one thing that I, for myself, as a person and also as an edible editor, for a long time, I've been really focused on individual lifestyle and individual choices, like what's happening in my refrigerator, and what if I plant these sprouts myself? And then you just get a glimpse of international policy and billions of dollars a year subsidizing systems that me and every single one of you and everyone that we know and all of our followers on Twitter, we can just eat our own radish sprouts for the rest of our lives, and those big systems won't change. So, Marion, how can we change those systems truly and look up from our plates at that kind of policy level?
Well, you use the political system and organize. And it is for some people. It's fun. It's a lot of fun, or it can be fun. And in fact, there's a group that's connected with NYU that does kind of fun sit-ins and pretending to be journalists and other kinds of things. And they say, if you're not having fun, you shouldn't be doing it. So you want to sit down and think about how could we take all of the energy in this room, the 60 or 65 or 70 edible magazines, which I think of as a movement in themselves, and bring that energy and that availability and that intellectual power and that food power to turn it into something that has some political force. Where is the movement? How do you create a movement? My single evaluative statement for anything that I go to or read about or watch these days is this good for the movement or is it not good for the movement? And if it's good for the movement, I'm for it. And so I want to see collective action. I want to see organizing, coalition building. It's not necessarily easy, but it can be really, really effective. And that's what I think. That's where the next step is.
Does that mean things like calling my representative?
Oh yeah, it does. It does. And actually, calling your representative is fun. I mean, you won't talk to the representative, but you could talk to some reasonably intelligent staff person, and they will be very impressed that you took the trouble.
I'm going to do some quick role play. Okay, who wants to be the staff person? Answering the phone, and Mary's going to be your constituent calling. No, I'll be staff. Okay.
You'll be the staff person? Senator Gillibrand, let's say, what issue shall we do? Let's pick an issue. You have to pick my marketing to children. I can't think. That's, for me, marketing to children is the line in the sand where that food companies will not cross. That's it. So I'm concerned about marketing to children. Senator Gillibrand. I'd like to talk to Senator Gillibrand about marketing to children.
Hi, this is Senator Gillibrand.
No, it's not.
No, it's Senator Gillibrand. Sorry. Senator Gillibrand would love to talk to you, and she really cares. Sorry, where do you live?
I live in your district.
Oh, you do? Yeah, so
Oh, yeah.
she would love,
Very
she always
important.
loves to hear from people in her
Yeah,
constituency
I
now.
live in your district.
She's unavailable right now, but if you let me know what your concerns are, I will certainly pass it on to the
Yes,
Senator.
I'd like to talk to the legislative staff, please. You never want to talk to legislators about anything except legislation. So let's say some congressperson has introduced a bill on restricting marketing to children. Oh, yeah, it is. It is. You need to know that before you call. So let's say somebody has done that, and I actually think there is one floating around. And then I'd like to ask the senator to support that bill. Mm-hmm. Simple as that.
Can I
and the
just
reason
call-
that I'm for it is because marketing to children is selling kids on foods that aren't good for them. We know that countries that have legislation on marketing to children have less obesity than we have in this country. And I'll have a whole series of reasons for doing it. And I just want her to support that bill, and that's all I have to do.
Mm-hmm. And the reason why it's so important for Marion to be making this phone call and for the staffer to be hearing it is because it's more than likely that that staffer would have received more than just a phone call, probably a visit, and more than just one visit from industry lobbyists that are going and saying the opposite of what most of us feel. So
While writing a check.
Well, yes, right? So the National Restaurant Association, for instance, which represents all of the biggest food restaurant chains, fast food restaurant chains, Darden, Olive Garden, they have an annual lobbying day on Capitol Hill. They have a convening of all of their members, and then they literally give them marching orders. Like, here's who you go visit, here's what time you visit them, and they have their own little mini march on Washington, where they're going into offices and they're saying the position that they think that those congresspeople should take on
And
issues.
giving out fact sheets.
Yeah.
On that with references and very well prepared. You always talk to legislators about legislation. It's that simple.
Can I just call and say I don't want marketing to children and not have a bill,
No,
please?
no, no.
Okay.
You could call and say, we'd like you to introduce a bill.
Okay.
And then you would write, as the lobbyists do, you would write the legislation and say, we'd like you to support, we think you should introduce this bill and support it.
So I'm curious, how many of you have ever called a congressperson, called somebody about legislation?
All
Oh,
right.
talking to the converted.
And how many of you have ever gone to Capitol Hill and done any kind of lobby day? Awesome. Anybody want to say anything about what that experience was like? Was
Can I
it
sit
scary, fun?
Thank you so much for calling, constituent.
are we gonna
will
let
pass
Marion
your
get off the
message to the
stage now?
senator. Ladies and gentlemen, God herself. Thank you, Tom. I'm going to pick on either Lee or Haven. Do you guys, either one of you want to talk about going to Capitol Hill? All right, Lee, right behind you.
I made an appointment with Senator Schumer several years ago when we were working on an energy bill. I came, I worked with environmental defense. I had about 25 pages. I sat down with him, I told him what we needed, and he actually went and got it done. So it was very successful, it was a lot of fun, but you have to be really prepared. I sat with a lawyer for about 3 days and we went over every aspect, but it did work. Then Bush was in office. It ultimately didn't work until Obama came into office, but we built a hybrid delivery truck based on the FedEx model, and we needed the IRS to release the stipulation on how we could write it off. So it was great. I highly recommend it. You just have to be prepared.
Great, thanks for that story.
Anybody else about impacting change in any way? How about any of you? Oh, great.
Hi. I'm with Edible Michiana Magazine, which is at the south end of Lake Michigan. But in a past life, I worked briefly for the state legislature in Washington State. And my experience there as a staff person for the caucus was that the state legislators really took seriously the information that they were getting from constituents. I mean, it wasn't a joke at all. Like, someone would call in and the Congress people would be talking about it, and they would be conferring with each other, oh, I got this message, I got this letter, I got this email. I mean, it really was something that they valued. And so I know it's easy when you are on the other end to think that those people aren't listening, and it can feel like, why should I bother? But I know from working with the caucus that actually people, at least there, were paying attention.
And I think also education, it's really important. That's why we want to teach food studies and to give the idea to young people that food is important. It's an important topic. It needs to be understood, especially if we want to make changes.
Great. Now, I'd like you guys to talk to your neighbors, and we're going to ask you to report back to the whole group some sort of nugget of a takeaway from the conversations here today. So ready, go.
The whole weekend.
And if you're here Thursday and Friday, you can slip that in too.
Common ideas. I really love the drop in the bucket, like turning it around, like.
Or what to galvanize.
Thanks, everyone. We're going to do a kind of lightning round, like 10 seconds each. And here we go. One of my takeaways was turn emergencies into celebrations and tell impact stories. I loved that from the waste rescue. Go.
For me, eating more oysters, the message I got from the Paul Greenberg panel yesterday, I will take that to heart as much as possible. And the Anna LePay
2 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Let me really quickly just say,
Last one.
she wants to hear this one. The importance of framing, I think it is about really discourse and about, we're all writers and communicators here, and writing things that not just, writing things that change the discourse, that give us a chance to shape the discourse and not always be on the defensive.
And for me, I loved the phrase from the food waste panel, eliminate the dumpster. I am going to take that to heart, as well as I think I can follow the eat more oysters. I can handle that as a call to arms.
For me, something that Anna said this morning, let's question the frames. Let's change the terms of the conversation.
Great. And now I'd like to pass the mic. This is literally going to be 10 seconds per group. So raise your hand if you want it. Ready? You got to talk quick and then pass it on.
Is saying exactly what?
A nugget takeaway like you just did, like a nugget takeaway from the conversation while you've been here.
It was really interesting hearing about how to save food. That was incredibly interesting, and I enjoyed it.
How to figure out how to effectively communicate with people who are not in this room without being elitist or condescending about food.
Anybody else?
We had a little discussion about the voice of the seafood world and how the focus on farmers and chefs is really, we focus a lot on that, and we need to bring the seafood world into that conversation and a little higher up on the hierarchy.
We liked how Anna set out a roadmap of how we can break down the message really simply, frame the message, and also not feel bad about having an elitist or so-called elitist message.
I just wanted to add to that. When you brought up Frank Luntz is now involved, I think that's a really, really, I could never underestimate enough what he brings to this conversation for the other side, having watched his work in other industries. So when it comes to framing, and I don't know if everybody knows of Frank Luntz's work, but when it comes to framing, I mean, he's an evil genius as far as assigning words, drawing emotions out of conversations, and then assigning words to those words to those emotions in a way where it draws people away from logic. And so I think when we talk about framing, that's really important to bring into this conversation is emotion and heart is really, really important to this, and sometimes more important than data and facts.
We did something a little different. We actually introduced ourselves and talked to each other, but it was interesting because it also highlighted the need for the personal connections between people and understanding what where they're coming from and what point of view they understand the food world from. The person I talked to here was actually from a farm in Indiana, and grew up in a soybean corn farm environment and left, and understanding coming back to food and understanding it from both sides of the perspective. But I think that's part of the personal conversation that needs to happen between people, that we have these food, as I call them, like ethnicities. We had oysters, and we had your social anthropological take on the psychology of change of ideas and cultures. But I think that we need to all get together and meet each other and okay, sure. Yeah.
Okay, my name's Nancy. We're with Edible Jersey, Edible Hudson Valley, and Edible Philly. David and Michael are here Farm to People, and we quickly agreed that we felt different points along the way about the importance of distribution, wholesale and retail, because if all of us are still going to be here in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and the wonderful panelists, especially the recent panel on food artisans there with Rick's Picks and the yogurt, we have to make sure it's all financially sustainable. So as time goes on, all of this young energy, this passion, and the new farmers and new food vendors, they have to make sure it can be financially sustainable. So it's important to keep focus on distribution.
And I'm glad you brought up youthful energy, because I'm really interested in seeing how the gap between the younger generation that has all this energy about food, how that'll mix and intermingle and kind of mesh with the older generation's experience, and just kind of seeing how that can be moved forward in the future. So I'm really excited to see that.
I'm Haven from Oakland, California, and I just met Kim, who came from North Carolina to Manhattan. She misses her food community, and she's been cooking for a roommate who struggles with health issues. She taught her roommate how to eat breakfast and make soup for health issues, and she was really motivated by the idea that small things matter, we can all make a difference, and I'm excited that she writes a food blog, because I think all those voices out there are really important.
I'm really excited as a mother of 2 millennials that millennials are transforming our economy, as we've seen. I think as baby boomers, we owe it to invest in their products and also in advocating for the issues they run up against. And I think that using food to bring people together in community is going to transform our economy in a good way and move us more towards a sharing community centered around food.
Okay, so we have time for one more group conversation. You don't have to be the same group of people, or you can. What we wanted to do, and we're going to do it up here as a group, is as a part of this closing, is to have you all reflect on, out of these days of conversation, what you've heard, the conversations you've had amongst yourselves, what is one thing that you are going to do differently? I know there are a lot of edible publishers in the room, but I know there's also a lot of people just from the community. So if you're an edible publisher, is there one thing you're going to bring to your publication that you're going to do differently because of something you heard? Is there one issue that you're like, oh, we haven't covered that at all, we're going to cover that, and we're going to cover an issue differently than we have in the past? If you're somebody from the New York City community, is there something you're going to do in your community differently? So what's one thing that changed in you because of this conversation, and that's going to change something that you do? And you'll have another just few minutes, and then we'll have a little report back and some closing comments. So another 2 minutes of that. Okay, time is up. If everybody can finish up your conversations. And we have a mic over here and a mic over here. And we would love to hear back, again, kind of keeping it really short, just anything that either you want to share, something you're going to do, or something that you heard somebody in your group say that you think is particularly cool and exciting and inspiring. So again, we'll just hear from a couple people, and then we'll tell you guys what we said to each other. So we have a mic over here. Raise your hand if you want to say something. Yeah.
So Annie here is going to try to find a way to tell a food fracking farming story for Wyoming. For the Edible magazine based in Idaho, actually across the border. And I'm going to try to find a way to tell people-based stories on behalf of equal exchange instead of so many facts and facts and facts and facts.
Great, great. Okay, other comments, thoughts?
So we're all retailers, and we were talking about like how to overcome the elitism in the movement and justifying to people the higher cost of the types of food that we all enjoy eating and talking about. And a takeaway that I got is that it's important to show people or talk to people about how cheap factories are and why they're cheap. And if you can sort of highlight to people why those factories are making things so cheaply, maybe they will be more interested in spending more money on what they put in their bodies.
The seafood panel was really eye-opening to me, and something I personally will do is eat American, try to do more, eat American seafood, a wide variety, mostly filter feeders, and try to spread the word about that.
We talked about in our group, on your panel, Mark and Jane, we talked about the common person and how we can't forget about time when we teach people how to cook. And so my real focus actually is when I teach people to love eating fruits and vegetables, that I'll always think about time and the constraints that they're working under, to be mindful of that.
So something that I realized is really important, judging from a lot of the panels that we saw, is that it's so important to cultivate an authentic voice from yourself that's very personal, but also find ways to directly relate to everyone who you're speaking to. And so I think it's a balance of both of those things, and that's really what engages others.
Great. Anybody else from this side?
Hi, I'm Samantha Wallace. I publish Edible Upcountry, which I'm sure everybody knows is in the upstate of South Carolina. It's a fabulous, fabulous part of the country, actually. But you asked what would I do as a publisher, and I plan to introduce, I have to check with my editor, but I'm the publisher, so I think she'll work with me on this, as I'd love to introduce 2 new departments that come to mind, because we have largely taken the approach of the shine the positive light on the right things and pull people along instead of scaring the bejesus out of them, saying, look and be compelled to introduce this new way of sourcing your food, and these are the reasons why. But I feel it's probably time that we introduce, maybe it's the thinnest layer of prosciutto of not the hope, in a form of a department. And the idea that comes to mind, I was very compelled by the seafood panel. Obviously, we are not in the coast, but we are only 2.5 hours from it. And to start a new department, the name that comes to mind is like upstream, downstream, and just start to connect the dots and more of a thinking beyond our region and the opportunity of lots of different conversations to have there. And the other one would be, probably out of my listening to Mark Bittman, would be to introduce, maybe it's a part of our edible season section that we call it the non-recipe. And it's the idea of you don't need a recipe. What we need is a technique. These are skills and techniques, and break it down in very visual terms. But those are the 2 things I'm taking away.
That sounds
there
great. Thanks. And I'd love to hear, I think we're just about out of time. You want to shout it out?
Yeah, well, so this is more of a fantasy. I don't know that I will do this, but I think it'd be great if we could have another edible, so buy an edible franchise and have like an edible Harlem or an edible South Bronx, where many of the people who we talk about who aren't here would be able to have a voice. They could publish their own articles because we can actually understand what's happening in their communities, and they can tell us about that. So I think people cool. Have edible that.
Love it.
Edible South Bronx, I can't wait to buy a copy. Awesome. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Anna?
So there were many ideas I had, and I feel very energized by having been here, so I'm really excited to go home after I get a full night's sleep and have some more energy. But I'm excited to go home back to the Bay Area and get even more involved with local food policy. We have in the Bay Area, in the East Bay in Berkeley and in the West Bay in San Francisco, 2 soda taxes that are coming up, and I'm really excited to kind of learn about the policy-making process, maybe get involved with those policies. And then as a new public school mom, starting in September, really excited to get involved with the school food change movement in my kids' public schools.
And for me as an educator is to work with students to bring the passion and the energy they have on personal and local issues around food to the national and the global level, so they can act also up there in things that sometimes are a little more complicated to understand.
And I think for me, one thing I was thinking about from the panel that I was on earlier was to re-emphasize and re-energize myself to bring more storytelling and narrative into my writing. And another thing is to re-energize myself and get back on the task of remembering that, you know, Anna was referring to some of it today, that there are these tremendous class divides in our society, racial divides in our society, that they're all in the food system, they're all in the various movements to reform the food system, and to bring that back into my writing as a topic to focus on is something that I've been made to think about in these last couple days.
Thanks. And I was really horrified to be reminded during the River Park Jeffries talk when he said $17 billion of U.S. tax money goes to underwrite agribiz, and 1% of that goes to specialty crops, which means fruits and vegetables. So I'm going to reach out to him and see what I can do to help. And Marion, you're invited. And we'll try to reverse that. So in just a moment, I'm going to say goodbye. But first, I'm going to tell you that after I say goodbye, we're going to have the pleasure of a song led by a farmer from Sylvester Manor Educational Farm out on Shelter Island, and he's going to teach us. So I know you traveled all around the world, Bennett, learning work songs, and he's going to teach us one, which is a drinking song, which sounds great to me, and I hope to see you guys at Jimmy's tonight. But before I hand the mic over, I want to say how I'm going to take with me your image from this morning of a bucket full of drops. And it's really a privilege to be a drop of water with all of you. Thank you for being here. And now let's sing a drinking song.
All right, hello, I'm Bennett, and this is Edith, and we're farmer musicians born and raised in Maine and farming on Shelter Island, New York at Sylvester Manor Educational Farm. And one of our main philosophies is that food and culture are, of course, the same thing, and in fact, expressive culture like songs, drinking songs, work songs, dances, poems, stories, recipes are all part of this fabric, the tapestry that we call food and culture. And it's actually a really important thing to revive those alongside the heritage seeds and breeds. So that's what we work on. We work on reviving the old songs and stories and sharing them as a valid and actually crucial part of knitting together a durable, fair, joyful food system. So what we're going to do is share one of those songs with you. And Brian asked us to come and sort of send you guys out into the evening with a joyful noise, basically. And actually, what I want you to do is join us. And the first thing I'm going to do in order to get you warmed up for it is teach a holler that this is sort of a Western North Carolina tradition. Spivey's Corner, North Carolina, and a way of calling out across the fields in order to grab somebody's attention in case you need their help or you got bit by a snake or something. So I'm going to put this down and show you, and I just want you to holler back to me, all right? Try it. Very good. Woo! Yeah. Woo! Right. So there's all kinds of ways to holler, and there's a distress holler, which sounds just like an ambulance siren. You can try that if you're ever in real big trouble. Or you can holler just any old song that you really love. So now that you're warmed up, I want you to try this. I want you to sing this line. When we go rolling home. Try that. When we go rolling home. Yes. When we go rolling home. Try it. When we go rolling home. When we go rolling, rolling. When we go rolling home. Try that. When we go rolling, rolling. When we go rolling home. that's the chorus, and it'll come around at the end of every verse and sing it with us. Also, there's the last line of every verse is, when we go rolling home, when we go rolling home. And you can join us for that too if you want. So, round goes the wheel of fortune, don't be afraid to ride. There's a land of milk and honey rests on the other side. There'll be peace and there'll be plenty, you'll never want to roam. When we go rolling home, 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 when we go rolling, rolling, when we go rolling home. And it sounds a little high, it certainly is for me. Let's try the chorus down here. When we go rolling home, when we go rolling home, when we go rolling, rolling, when we go rolling home. That's the spirit.
That's a little better.
So, verse 2. The gentry in their fine array do prosper night and morn. And we stout-hearted farmers go and plow and sow the corn. It may seem they are all powerful, but the glory is our own. When we go rolling home, when we go rolling home. Let's hear it. When we go rolling home, when we go rolling home, when we go rolling, rolling, when we go rolling home. The frost is on the hedgerows, the icy winds do blow, and we unto the fields do go, all through the rain and snow. Stand true and stand together, your labor is your own. When we go rolling home, 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 when we go rolling, rolling, when we go rolling home. So pass the bottle round and let your toasts run free. Here's a health to every farmer, wherever she may be. Fair labor now and ever, let's reap what we have sown. When we go rolling home, 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 when we go rolling, rolling, when we go rolling home, when we go rolling home, when we go rolling home, when we go rolling, rolling, when we go rolling home. Thank you. So, I hope you all roll home safely. You can find all sorts of songs like that on our website, worksongs.org. And I'm gonna roll off to Mongolia to learn work songs tomorrow morning. So, see you on the web.
Thank you so much. And just a reminder that the after party at Jimmy's, number 43, that's on 7th Street, just west of 2nd Avenue. And I hope the conversation will continue there. Thank you, everyone.